Hello, I ended the last video with a mention of Gunta Stolzl. She studied at Munich and went on to head up the weaving workshop at the Bauhaus in Dessau. Now, the Bauhaus, a German art school founded by the architect Walter Gropius, with the aim of bringing the various art disciplines closer together and narrowing the gap between fine arts and crafts, and in that way looking back to the arts and crafts movement. But the Bauhaus was very modern in its approach. Their designs are functional. The architecture and furniture they produce doesn't have any unnecessary ornamentation. It's very streamlined, and they embrace industrial materials and the latest production methods. It operated from 1919 to 1933. In the early 1930s, came under pressure from the Nazi regime and eventually closed. Gunta Stolzl, her focus was on designs for mass production, and the weaving workshop that she ran was the only profitable bit of Bauhaus. Her designs are wonderfully colourful, vibrant, the patterns are abstract and geometric. This is a wall hanging. This is one of her rug designs. And we can see another example. When the Bauhaus closed, Gunta Stolzl moved to Switzerland and set up a weaving workshop with two former colleagues. Now, we met the furniture designer Jacques-Emile Ruehlmann in part 9, mostly dealing in one-off commissions, high-end furniture, and he also designed carpets to complement that furniture. This example is wool, it's hand knotted, 8 feet in diameter. This is another example. And the one in this illustration he exhibited at that famous 1925 Paris exposition. Ivan de Silva Bruhns was born in Paris, but his parents were Brazilian, and he worked as an interior decorator, but his particular interest was carpets. And he bought expensive oriental rugs, cut them up, unpicked them and unscrambled them in order to find out how they were made, and then came up with his own innovative knotting techniques. He didn't do too much of that himself, he taught others to do that, and he concentrated on design, usually beginning with a watercolour and then making a small scale model, a maquette. Typically he works with pastel shades, greys, pinks, apricots, soft browns, and he was hugely popular. Much of his work is signed. This rug is from 1927, this design from 1928, and this design, simply called tapis, carpet, was sold at Christie's in Paris in 2011, and it sold for over 63,000 euros. Marion Dawn was an American designer of textiles, much influenced by visits to Paris in the 1920s, moved to London, where she married a fellow American and a poster artist, Ted Kaufer, and the pair lived and worked in England until 1940, when they moved back to the USA. A blue plaque now marks the house where they lived at Swan Court in Chelsea. And Marion Dorn designed carpets for several prestigious hotels, including the recently refurbished Art Deco wonder that is the Midland Hotel in Morecambe. This remake of one of her designs is now in the foyer there. And in London for the Savoy and Claridge's. She also did designs for Cunard, including for the ocean liners Orion and the Queen Mary. And she did designs for Stephen and Virginia Courtaulds' Eltham Palace. This carpet, 19 feet in diameter. We saw this in part 8, an absolute exact copy of the original, which is now in the V&A. She ran her own company, Marion Dawn Limited, and was known as the architect of floors. This is one of her carpets, it's tufted wool, 1930. And this sculptured style of carpet, very typical of Marion Dawn, hand woven and then the pile is cut. This carpet was commissioned for the dining room of Brian and Diana Guinness and made for them by Wilton. And Marion Dawn also did designs for other companies, including Edinburgh Weavers. Edinburgh Weavers was a family business joined by a member of the family, Alistair Morton, who was also an abstract artist, and he became their art director and persuaded fellow artists like Barbara Hepworth and Ben Nicholson and others to do designs for Edinburgh Weavers textiles. This Barbara Hepworth design was produced in cotton and rayon, dates to 1937, part of a range that was called Constructivist. Eileen Gray, we met in part 10, also did carpet designs. This one is called Vendingen. It's named after a Dutch magazine which promoted her work. This design was blue marine, specifically for the house she built for herself on the Côte d'Azur E1027. And this interesting design Eileen came up with after a visit to Morocco. And finally, another mention of Enid Marx, mentioned her in the last video, a distant cousin of Karl Marx, worked for Phyllis Barron and Dorothy Larcher, and then set up her own workshop in 1927. In World War II, she worked on utility furniture, a government scheme to try and make the most of scarce materials, but she's best known for her upholstery designs for London Transport, and this pattern is known as Shield. It's a thick, dense pile of wool and a mix of polyester. It's maquette. And I'm going to stay with London Transport next time and look at the innovative London Underground stations designed by Charles Holden. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons and click on the notification bell to be informed when the next video is available. Or you can subscribe by clicking on the rose window over my shoulder.